Okay, for this video, I'll be discussing trafficking in person investigation. Actually, trafficking in person is also called human trafficking or modern day slavery. And this is still part 1. So let us start with the definition of the trafficking in person as provided by RA 9208 or Anti-Trafficking in Persons Act. No? Or this is the TIP law. TIP means Trafficking in Persons Act. No? So what is trafficking in person? Recruitment, transportation, transfer, harbor, receipt, person with or without victim consent within or across national border by means of threat, force, and other forms of coercion, abduction, fraud, deception, abuse of power, taking advantage of the vulnerability of the person, or giving, receiving payments or benefits to achieve consent for the purpose of exploitation, which includes minimum exploitation or prostitution and other forms of sexual exploitation. Ang haba ng definition. No? Ang haba ng definition. But actually, from definition, you will surmise that there are 3 elements of the crime. First is what we call the acts. Ito yung recruitment, transportation, means. Ito yung pamamaraan, threat, use of force, force of coercion, abduction, fraud, digayay, at saka number 3 is yung purpose. Exploitation or prostitution or sexual exploitation, forced labor, services, slavery, and servitude. So, if we're going to dissect the definition, ito yun, acts, means, and of course, the purpose. Okay? Ito yung tatlong element ng human trafficking or trafficking in person. Again, ano mga action? Pag re-recruit, no? You will go to some place and recruit someone to work for you. Transportation, dinadala mo siyang tao from one place to another. Transfer, ganoon din. Harboring is pagtago, no? Kinupkup mo yung tao. Receive the person or with or without victim's consent. Yan yung acts of trafficking. Anong pamamaraan? It could be threat, tinatakot mo, force, sa pilitan, coercion, abduction, kinidnap, fraud, panloloko, deception. Example, ni-recruit mo siya, sige, dadaling kita sa Manila, papasukin kita bilang domestic helper. Pagdating sa Manila, ibang trabaho ang binigay mo. Naging GRO siya doon or naging position doon. So there is what? Deception. Abuse of power or taking advantage of vulnerable person. Yung mahirap, you take advantage of the vulnerable person, yung pagiging mahirap niya, tinitake mo advantage mo yun para ma-recruit mo siya. So that is means. And the most important element of trafficking person is yung purpose. Okay? Ano mga purpose yan? Prostitution. Pag ni-recruit ng isang tao para maging prostitute, that's human trafficking. Forced labor, no? Sa pitang pagtatrabaho. Slavery, ginawa mong slave. Servitude or removal or sale of organs. We will discuss this one by one. No? This is very important. Lumabas na yan sa board exam. Ano yung purpose ng trafficking in person? So, yan yung trafficking in person. No? Ni-recruit mo siyang tao, kinita mo siyang tao, pinasok mo sa prostitution, sa pornography, sa sale or removal of organs, and that is human trafficking or trafficking in person. So, all 3 elements, ano yun? The acts, the means, the purpose must be proven for trafficking to exist. Kasi pag acts lang, ni-recruit mo sa tao, pinasok mo sa kapitbahay, bilang kasambahay, that is not trafficking. Kasi walang means, walang purpose. Diba? Ni-recruit mo sa tao, tapos hindi ka pala may deception, hindi ka pala legal recruiter, ang kaso nun, illegal recruitment, hindi trafficking in person. Pero pag ni-recruit mo siyang tao, iloko mo siya by means of deception or taking advantage of vulnerability at saka pinasok mo sa prostitution, pornography, removal, sale of organ, forced labor, then there is trafficking in person. Okay, there will be trafficking in person. Ito lang ito, tingnan nyo. Ito yung formula ng trafficking. Acts, means, and purpose. So, kailangan may recruitment, transport, transfer, harbor, receipt, give, receive, or benefit. Kailangan, anong means? Anong pamamaraan? Violence, threat, abduction, coercion, fraud, deception, abuse of power, and sexual exploitation. Ang purpose, sexual exploitation, forced labor, services, slavery, servitude, organ removal. If you watch the movie Taken, yung kay Liam Neeson na movie, yung anak niya nagbakasyon sa isang lugar, kinidnap yun, di ba? There was harboring. Inarbor yung anak niya through violence. Kasi kidnapping yun. Tapos pinasok sa prostitution. Because sexual exploitation includes prostitution. Okay? So, anong kaso doon? Human trafficking yun or trafficking in person. No? So, ito yung lumabas na rin sa board exam. G7, Ministers endorse Interpol Global Task Force of Human Trafficking. G7. So, ito, kasi ano to they advocated for protection on human trafficking, no? Against human trafficking. So, lumabas sa board exam. Ano ba dito? Which of the following is not part of G7? Yan. So, G7 means, ito yung 7 advanced countries. Ano yun? Japan, Italy, Canada, France, United Kingdom, Germany, and United States. So, ang yung monastery niya ginawa is Jek Fugo. Jek Fugo. Anong Jek Fugo? Japan, Italy, Canada, France, United Kingdom, Germany, and United States. Hindi kasali ang, of course, yung China, Korea, o di kaya yung Russia, no? Hindi sila kasali sa G7. So ito talaga, no? Lumabas sa word exam, purpose of trafficking. The offender committed acts of trafficking for exploitative purpose. Yun yung para mag-consider siyang human trafficking, kailangan meron siyang exploitative purpose. The exploitative purpose is trafficking are sexual exploitation, prostitution, pornography, forced labor services, slavery, servitude, engagement in armed activities, and removal or sale of organs. Yan yung mga purpose ng trafficking in person. So let's just discuss that one by one. Ano bang ibig sabihin ng sexual exploitation? Papers of participation by person in prostitution and in the production of pornographic material. So, sexual exploitation, dalawa yun. Prostitution, okay, pag nirecruit mo sa tao for prostitution or for production of pornographic material, para gumawa kayo ng pornographic, like fake taxi. Okay, yan. Or mga gangbang, no? Also being subjected to threat, deception, coercion, and force. So, yan yung sexual exploitation, no? Production of pornographic material or prostitution. So, what is prostitution? Now, this prostitution is an element to the crime. Element to the crime to, no? Refers to act, transaction, scheme, design involving use of person by another for sexual intercourse or lascivious conduct in exchange for money, profit, or any other consideration. Okay. Dito sa prostitution na to, basta may act, may transaction, o di kaya scheme or design, involving the use of person, gumamit ng tao, for sexual intercourse, sex, or lascivious conduct, yung touching-touching lang, exchange for money, kailangan may pera, profit, or any other consideration, then that is prostitution. And remember, do not limit your understanding of prostitution sa sexual intercourse. Because it includes lascivious conduct. No? Defines intentional touching, yung touching, kahit na yung pag-touch-touch ng private parts, ng genitalia, anus, breast, inner thigh, buttocks, ay may bayad in exchange for money, then that is prostitution. So basically, ganito yan. Pag ang sexual intercourse ay nagpabayad ka, then that is prostitution. Di ba? Pag yung lascivious conduct ay may bayad, that is prostitution also. Okay? Kasi kung walang bayad yan, sexual intercourse walang bayad, that is not prostitution. Okay? It's not prostitution. Yung touching, no? Touching of private parts, that is not prostitution if walang bayad. Kasi kailangan in exchange for money, profit, or any other consideration para makonsider siyang prostitution. Okay, ganito. Example. 3 KTV bar kung saan isinabak umano sa prostitution ang ilang minoridad ni-raid ng mga pulis. So dito may sexual intercourse, may mga private room. Okay? Doon ginagalaw yung mga minor. Okay? Then that is prostitution, no? Yan. Now, may mga bar, no? Yung mga tanong bar na may mga nagtatarong GRO, guest relation officer. Actually, this one, kung ganito lang naman, this is not yet prostitution. Okay? We cannot say it kasi walang sexual intercourse pa naman, no? Kung mag-table-table ka lang ng GRO dyan, that is not prostitution. Sa bar, that's not prostitution. But, if the bar has the so-called bar fine, merong bar, and they offer bar fine, what is bar fine? Kung gusto mong i-take out yung babae, kailangan magbayad ka ng bar fine. Magbayad ka ng bar fine. Okay? Magbabayad ka sa bar like 1.5, 2.5, depende sa bar, no? Okay? So, is that prostitution? Tapos i-take out mo yung babae. Is that prostitution? Well, that is prostitution. Because prostitution is an act, transaction, scheme, or design. The moment there is already transaction, the moment this scheme or design involving the use of person for sexual intercourse or lascivious conduct, then that is prostitution. Hindi kailangang habitual dito. Hindi kailangang habitual. No? Kahit basta may transaction lang, may scheme or design. Ang example ng scheme or design is yung bar fine. Okay? Kung take out mo yung GRO, magbabayad ka ng bar fine. So that's an example of prostitution. Dalawang babae na sagip mula sa dalawang spa na nag-alok ng extra service. No? Kasi alam nyo, yung mga massage parlor ngayon, they are being used as front. No? Front ng prostitution. Kasi yung iba niya nag-alok ng extra service. May mga handjob, blue job, meron ding all the way, no? All the way. Again, by the way, this is not based on experience. This is only based on my research. No? Research lang naman to. Baka sabihin sir, bakit alam mo, no? So this is not based on experience. So for example, may isang masihista. Sabi ng masihista, nagpumasay babae, sir, malapit na tayong matapos. Ganun ba? Sige, mabuti. Sir, baka gusto mo ng extra. Anong extra? Sir, meron kaming handjob. Magkano? 500. Meron kaming blue job. Magkano? 1,000. Meron kaming all the way, sir. Magkano? 1,500. Okay, this is not based on experience. Now, what if sabi mo, sige, ano na lang, handjob na lang. So, kami extra service ng handjob. Walang sexual intercourse, pero may lascivious conduct. Is that prostitution? The answer is yes. Remember, prostitution does not only include sexual intercourse, but also applies to lascivious conduct. Handjob, blue job is lascivious conduct. Lascivious conduct yan. So, that is prostitution. No? Yung mga massage spa or parlor na nag-offer ng extra service, I consider yan as prostitution. And if they are recruited, then that is human trafficking. No? So, praise any consideration does not necessarily mean to involve actual payment of money in exchange for sex or lascivious conduct. Trafficking person consideration may include offer of employment, offer ng employment, or opportunities to the victim. That is also other consideration. Now, but I want you to take note also the meaning of prostitution under the revised penal code. Kasi yung diniscuss ko kanina, prostitution yun under RA 9208 as an element of the crime of yung trafficking in person, human trafficking. But this time, the revised penal code, Article 202 provides the meaning of prostitute. Sino mo yung mga prostitute? Sino ang mga prostitute? Woman, babae, who for money or profit habitually indulge in sexual intercourse or lascivious conduct. So again, isang babae, may pera, may profit, may sexual intercourse or lascivious conduct, then that is prostitution. Okay? And that's a crime. That's a crime. But remember this, habitualness is an element of the crime of prostitution under Article 202. Kasi kung may isang babae, nag-offer lang ng sexual services, hindi naman palagi, tuwing enrollment, midterm exam, final exam, para makasustain sa kanyang schooling, that is not prostitution. Bakit? It is not habitual. Kasi kailangan ito, it must be habitual. Okay? What if isang babae, iba't ibang ka-sex, Monday iba, Tuesday iba, Wednesday iba naman, Thursday iba, Friday iba namang lalaki, Saturday iba na naman, Sunday pahinga muna, no, day off. So, is she a prostitute? Well, she is not prostitute if wala ding money or profit. Kasi kailangan may money or profit. Okay? So, prostitute, it will apply yung sa isang lugar, for example, sa isang lugar, may isang babae pala, every night nag-offer ng sexual services, pumapara. Okay? Pumapara sa mga dumadaan sa sakyan. Is that woman liable for prostitution? The answer is yes. Under Article 202 ng revised penal code. Okay? So, under this article, 202, prostitutes are women only. Okay, women only. Now, so here, who is prostitute here? Itong babae nag-offer ng sexual services, itong lalaki nag-offer ng sexual services. So, under the law, under Article 202, is yung babae. Itong lalaki nag-offer ng sexual services, hindi yan prostitute. O nanginabuhi o ratawa na sila. No? Itong mga samahan ng 150. Nanginabuhi o na sila. Under the law, 202. Now, in prostitution, who is criminal liable? Yung prostitute or yung customer? Well, remember, ang liable dito is yung prostitute, hindi ang customer. Why? Customer is always right. No? Customer is no. Basically, of course, that's a joke. Again, sa prostitution kasi, sinong liable as prostitute? Woman. Money or profit, indulge in sexual intercourse, lascivious conduct. So, here, ang liable dito yung prostitute, hindi yung customer. Okay, ganito. So, paano natin na-reconcile yung prostitution under Article 9208 and yung prostitution under Article 202 ng Revised Penal Code? Remember this. This prostitution under 202 is a crime. Crime to. Yung prostitution under 208, 9208 is an element of the crime of human trafficking. So, how would you reconcile that? Ganito. Kung merong recruiter, yung prostitute, may recruiter, may bugaw, alam ng amo, may amo siya, then 9202 will apply. 9202 will apply. What do you mean by that, sir? Well, hindi siya liable. Ang maging liable, yung recruiter. Anong liability ng recruiter? Human trafficking or trafficking in person. Pero what if yung isang prostitute, walang recruiter, walang bugaw, siya mismo yung nagbubugaw sa kanyang sarili, siya mismo nag-offer ng sexual services. So, walang coercion, no? Walang recruitment. So, yung babae na yun nag-offer ng sexual services is liable siya under Article 202 ng Revised Penal Code for prostitution. Yan yung kaibahan ng dalawa. Ano pa? Now, kung ito ay may bugaw, then itong dalawa to, hindi to liable. Ang liable is yung bugaw. Now, under Art 9208 din, pwede nang maging prostitute ang lalaki. Pag itong lalaki na ito ay may bugaw, then that is also human trafficking. Okay? Now, kung ito ay walang bugaw, sila yung liable. Pero kung may bugaw ito, ang liable yung customer, use of traffic person, which will be our next topic. Okay? So, yan yung kaibahan ng dalawa. So, yung isa, may bugaw, may recruiter, 9208. Pag walang bugaw, Article 202 ng Revised Penal Code. So, ito, task force going after cartoon girls. Anong to mga cartoon girls? Actually, cartoon girls ang tawag sa kanila kasi ito yung mga prostitute na mga minor de edad. And they're bringing cartoons. This happens in Cebu, no? Cebu. Okay? Kasi may isang malawak ng kalupain, no? Medyo, hindi well-lighted area. O yung mga bata doon nagdadala ng cartoon kasi yung cartoon na gagamitin sa sexual intercourse nila. Kaya tawag yun cartoon girls. Okay? Now remember this. If you use a traffic child, then that is qualified trafficking in person. Qualified trafficking in person. Pag bata ang biktima ng human trafficking. Now, pornography. What is pornography? Representation through publication, exhibition, cinematography, indecent show, information, technology, whatever means of person engaged in real, explicit sexual activities. Presentation of sexual parts of person primarily for sexual purposes. So, again, if you watch my video in organized crime, I have already discussed that pornography will become pornography if it is primarily for sexual purpose. Because under the law, okay, nudity per se, yung paghubad, ay hindi yan pornography unless it is for sexual purposes. I'll give you example later. So ito, yung Anti-Trafficking Persons Act, no? RTC, Branch 20, convicted Tuesday, Pubar, National, Drew Frederick Shubrok of human trafficking, sentencing to life imprisonment. Shubrok was in 2013 at his apartment in Cebu City after 4 minors filed complaint saying they have been sexually exploited by Australian national. Okay? Kasi yung mga minor na yan, pinipidyoan niya, pinipicturan niya, at binibenta niya. Okay? So, yan yung pornography. And that is human trafficking. That's human trafficking. Cybersex operation in Cordoba home, 5 minors rescued. No? It was an ordinary day for Nina, that's her name, who took off her shirt in front of a computer. Nung nagubad sa front ng computer and camera while being guided by her aunt in their house in Barangay Cugun, Cordoba, Cebu yesterday. So again, this is pornography. No? Again, nudity per se is not pornographic. But nudity primarily for sexual purpose is pornographic. So again, no, can you consider si Ann Curtis nagubad? Okay, butubad. Is this art or pornography? Or, at least art. Again, that's art. Maganda naman siya, no? Ito, sculpture. Hubad-hubad sa UP. Is this art or pornography? This is art because this is not primarily for sexual purpose. O ito, mother, kinagat ng baby yung dede niya. Is this art or pornography? Of course, this is art because she is promoting breastfeeding. Pero kung papa na ang mututoy diya ay pornography na daw. Kung papa ay mututoy, no? That's primarily for sexual purposes. Okay? Now, forced labor. This is another form of human trafficking. Refers to extraction of work or services from one person by means of enticement, violence, intimidation, or threat, use of force, coercion, including deprivation of freedom, abuse, authority, or moral ascendancy of debt-bondage. So, again, no, pag pinilit mo isang taong magtrabaho, for example, ito, pinilit itong magtrabaho sa isang fishing industry at ayaw nila. And that is forced labor. Extraction of work or services from person by means of enticement, violence, intimidation. That is forced labor. Debt-bondage, okay? Pledging by the debtor of his personal services or labor of those person under his control as security for payment of debt. Pambayad utang. So kung ito ay nagtatrabaho sa isang tao para makabayad ng kanilang utang, then that is debt-bondage. Sa mga asyenda, no? Maraming pagkakataon yung father may utang or yung mother may utang. Hindi na nakakababayad. Anong pinambabayad nila? Yung anak nila. Yung anak mag-offer ng sexual services. Labor, no? Labor o di kaya sexual services, pwede din, no? That is debt bondage. Now, slavery refers to status or condition of person over whom power attaching to the right of ownership. So, ito yung keyword, right of ownership. Yun yung slave. Ginawa ang slave. Pag isang tao, ginawa mong slave. Kasi binebenta mo kung saan-saan na lang. That is human trafficking. No? 24 anyos na babaeng kinidnap at ginawang sex slave. This is slavery, yung sex slave. Nasagip, suspect na kilala sa social media, arestado. No? Sex slave yun. Slavery. And another purpose of trafficking person, human trafficking, is removal or sale of organ. The following acts which are committed for the purpose of sale or removal of organs constitute crime of trafficking person, recruiting, hiring, and adopting. So, usually, ano bang binibenta ng mga tao? Itong kidney. And it range 100,000 or more, no? So, that is removal or sale of organ. Pag may mag-recruit sa kanila para magbenta ng kidney, the recruiter will be liable for human trafficking or trafficking in person. Okay? Pero, Mary, an 18-year-old, a native of rural barangay Mabinay, stopped her schooling in high school to help her parents in their livelihood. When she met John, their neighbor before, who now resides in Metro Manila, and had offered her a work as domestic servant in Manila, she immediately accepted the offer. Her parents, having no apparent means of income, supported the plans of their daughter. However, when Mary arrived in Manila, she was forced by John to work in a nightclub as dancer. One night, John negotiated with his customer for sexual intercourse with Mary. However, when Mary and his supposed customer met at the club, an operation ensued. Was trafficking in person already consummated? May trafficking in person na ba? May recruitment ba? May deception ba? May sexual exploitation pa? Yes. Okay? Trafficking in person is consummated despite the fact that there was no sexual intercourse. There was an act of recruitment through taking advantage of the of the person, and there was not, and it was for sexual purpose. Although there was no yet sexual intercourse, there was already prostitution. Bakit? Prostitution is defined as act, transaction, scheme, or design. So kung may transaction na kahit wala pang sex, that is already prostitution. Under RA 9208. Under RA 9208. So in a nutshell, ito yung human trafficking, no? Abduction of a child, forced labor, human cage, gawa kang slave, no? Human cage, forced prostitution, okay? Prostitute, forced marriage, organ theft, organ removal, sa fishing industry, forced labor yan, forced child beggar, and selling of babies. Ito yung mga form of human trafficking. So let's answer some questions, no, in application of what we have discussed. So, one, which of the following is not an element of the crime trafficking in person? So, alin dyan ang hindi element? A, acts. B, means. C, gain. D, purpose. So, hindi kasali ang gain. Kasi acts, means, and purpose, ito yung mga elements ng trafficking person o human trafficking. Pero gain, hindi kasali yan. That is not an element of the crime. 2. It refers to participation by a person in prostitution, production of pornographic materials as a result being subjected to threat, deception, or coercion, abduction. So, participation of person, saan? Sa prostitution or production of pornography. So, dalawa. Prostitution and production of pornography. Ano yan? A, sexual exploitation. B, pornography. C, prostitution. D, slavery. So, this is sexual exploitation. Kasi dalawa. May prostitution at may pornography. Or yan, or. 3. It refers to act, transaction scheme, design involving use of person by means of sexual intercourse or lascivious conduct in exchange for money or profit. So, merong act, transaction scheme, design. Is it A, sexual exploitation? B, pornography. C, prostitution. D, slavery. Of course, this is prostitution kasi may act, transaction scheme, design. May sexual intercourse or lascivious conduct and may money or profit. 4. If a man is by to indulge in sexual intercourse or lascivious conduct for money or profit, is guilty of, okay? May habitual sexual intercourse, lascivious conduct, may money, guilty of A, prostitution, B, trafficking person, C, use of trafficking person, D, none. Well, the answer is none. Bakit none? May habituality, yes, tama. Merong sexual intercourse or lascivious conduct, may money, pero money. It must be a woman. A woman who is habitually indulged in sexual intercourse or lascivious conduct for money or profit is liable under prostitution. Pero pag man, hindi siya liable ng prostitution. Under 202 ng revised method. 5. Which the following is not an element of the crime of trafficking person? A, recruitment, transportation, transfer. B, by means of threat, the use of force, other forms of coercion, abduction. C, with intent to defraud, kill, gain, or profit. D, for purpose of exploitation, prostitution, other forms of sexual exploitation. Well, ang not element dyan is of course yung letter C pa rin. Ito yung act, ito yung means, ito yung purpose. Okay? So, C is not an element to the crime of human trafficking or trafficking in person. Which the following is not an act of trafficking? Nandito na pala. No? Nandito na yung sagot. So, ito dapat. So, ang tamang sagot is promising. Kasi nga, recruitment, act yan. Transfer, act yan. Receipt of act yan. Promising and advertising, that is not an act of trafficking in person. 7. In order to prove trafficking in person, the purpose must be clearly established. Which of the following is not the purpose of committing trafficking in person? Sexual exploitation. A. B. Employment abroad. C. Prostitution, pornography. D. Removal of organ. Hindi kasali sa purpose ang employment abroad. That is not included in the purpose. 8. Which the following is not part of G8? This is G7. Okay, G7. Ano yung hindi part ng G7? A. Japan. B. USA. C. France. D. China. Of course, ang answer ay China. Jikfugo kasi ang G7. Jikfugo. Okay, I think that's the last part for this video. Thank you and see you on my next video.